Hello and welcome to the place for truth and the deep dives into the real issues that it will take to make real changes. Yes, you are here at From Dirt We Grow. You are with me, Stephanie Kendall, and I appreciate you for being here. Now, I'm wondering, have you noticed how in politics words just don't mean the same as they used to? Like, it's like a game of Scrabble, but everybody's cheating. Okay, so today I have put together for you a little dictionary for, political terminology, kind of like for the challenge, I guess, for the politically terminology challenged. Now, even if you're not one of the challenged, I urge you to stick around. We'll hear quite a few interesting things about fake news. Also, there are a couple inspiring messages throughout the video. So stick around and let's get right into it. Yep, Antifa. Trump signs another executive order. This one is labeling Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. The term Antifa is short for anti-fascist. That's it, anti-fascist. No, there's no group. It's just people who identify as Antifa are known not for what they support, but what they oppose, which is fascism, nationalism, far-right ideologies, white supremacy, authoritarianism, racism, homophobia, xenophobia. That's it. Okay, y'all know I like my receipts, so I brought you over here to the whitehouse.gov website to show you what they're talking about with this domestic terrorism crap. Antifa is a militarist, anarchist enterprise that explicitly calls for the overthrow of the United States government, law enforcement authorities, and our system of law. A legal means to organize and execute a campaign of violence. It involves coordinated efforts to obstruct enforcement of federal laws through armed standoffs with law enforcement, organized riots, violent assaults on immigration and customs enforcement and other law enforcement officers, and routine doxing of and other threats against political figures and activists. That just kept going and going and going, didn't it? Apparently, Antifa recruits, trains, and radicalizes young Americans to engage in this violence, then employs elaborate means and mechanisms to shield the identities of its operatives, conceal its funding sources and operations in an effort to frustrate law enforcement and recruit additional members. Man, that is just comical. I promise you, he's making complete fabrications. All right, then it goes on to say, I hereby designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Oh, boy. All right, so now I got to get in here and dissect this mess. Let's just throw his whole basis for this EO, not to mention the claim that Antifa is a domestic terrorist, right out of the window. So, first claim that he made is that Antifa is a military anarchist enterprise that explicitly calls for the overthrow of the government. So in reality, Antifa is not an organization. It's decentralized. It's just activists. It has no central leadership, no membership, no command structure. It's just people who identify as Antifa. Claim 2, it uses illegal means to organize and execute a campaign of violence and terrorism nationwide, coordinated armed standoffs, violent assaults, routine doxing, blah, 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 blah. In reality, some individuals associated with Antifa-style direct action have engaged in property damage or violence in specific incidents. Some have used doxing or online harassment. But the claim of a coordinated nationwide campaign run by a single organization is not supported by open source evidence, and many past incidents attributed to Antifa have later been shown to be false. Claim number 3, Antifa recruits, trains, and radicalizes young Americans, employs elaborate means to shield identities and conceal funding. Hold on, is he talking about ICE or is he talking about Antifans? In reality, there is evidence that some activists organize training in de-escalation or street medics, and that online communities exchange tactics. But the narrative of a single clandestine apparatus funding and training recruits in a coordinated national terror campaign, it just lacks demonstrated proof. Many funding conspiracies have been debunked, as usual, or are unproven. So, actually, what the data shows about violence in the US is that the trend is multiple major studies and law enforcement reports. NIJ, DOJ, FBI, DHS, CSIS, all of them have documented that far right extremist violence has been the dominant source of ideologically motivated lethal attacks in recent decades. I will tell you this, and this is speaking as a veteran of the Army of the United States of America, who took the same oath as many, many other people to uphold and protect the Constitution of the United States and to protect it from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And let me tell you, Antifa is not a terrorist. It is not an enemy. It is not a domestic enemy. It is not a domestic terror. You know what it is, though? Fascists. Donald Trump is a domestic terrorist. Yep, this executive order is a perfect example of why we're going to define the next political phrase that we are going to define. Let's check it out. Now, let me tell you what fake news is not. Fake news is not something I don't agree with or something I don't like. That is not fake news. Let's look at what fake news is here, according to Cambridge Dictionary. Fake news is false stories that appear to be news, spread on the internet or by using other media, usually created to influence political views or as a joke. Now, if we look at the sentence they used, like using it in a sentence, there is concern about the power of fake news to affect election results. Now, that is not their definition. They're used in a sentence for no reason. So that tells you a lot right there. Let's take a look at how it has transformed. Fake news has transformed from literal propaganda to a blanket defense tactic, especially in politics. And we're going to do that through simple research. Greater Good magazine has an article written by an author. Actually, she wrote a book about fake news, Annalee Newitz. Let's look at what she wrote in this article. The unknown operatives spread a wave of disinformation. Then they would spread a second wave that was designed to inoculate people against any efforts to debunk the first wave of disinformation. There are 3 psychological weapons that combatants often transfer into cultural war: scapegoating, deception, and violent threats. Combatants will scapegoat specific groups of Americans by painting them as foreign adversaries. Sound familiar? Then they will lace their rhetoric with lies and bully their adversaries with threats of violence or imprisonment. Sound familiar? So that whole psychological operation was, they must be playing that one play by play by the book. To demonstrate just how dangerous this fake news is, how much of an impact it can have on people, Harvard did a study, an experiment. You can find this on hbr.org. They did an experiment on a group of people, showing people fake news stories. Now, some of them, the ones that they even told them straight up, disclaimer, hey, this is fake news, this is a fake news story, the study found that it had minimal impact on the reader's judgment of the story, of the company that was involved in this fake news story. They were still left with a negative view of this company, even though it was clearly fake news. So you can imagine how it can spread so easily, so fast, especially in this day and age of social media and all the AI capabilities, the deep fakes, and all these things that we're contending with as far as the real news and what people can put out there as fake, and people believe it. So that is how dangerous fake news is and why it needs to be debunked. Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Woke is aware of and actively attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. Now it's time for a real lesson in the meaning of the word woke, because there are way too many people that confuse or misinformed on what the word means in today's society and where it actually originated. In previous episodes, I have mentioned how this word is absolutely misinterpreted and, surprise, surprise, weaponized by current political figures to be something dangerous or threatening. It is vitally important to be clear on this. It's only something dangerous or threatening to those that choose to be threatened by it. And what I mean is very clear on that, by the way, also something that's been brought up in previous episodes. Those who choose to be threatened by equality are people that have built-in privileges in life. Many people that do not experience inequalities personally do not see how, in reality, inequalities affect others in such a detrimental way. Also, for some deranged reason, and I'm guessing that it's something to do with indoctrination, some people feel as if real equality for everybody would mean they'd be losing something themselves. Let's look at woke and what it means and where it came from. So it started in the 1930s and gained traction in the civil rights era, simply meaning to be awake to injustices, aware of racism, inequality, systemic oppression that many people ignored. To be woke was to pay attention. That's it. So fast forward to modern day, where the premise behind the word, the intent to give those discriminated against, those treated with prejudice and bias, a voice, to let it be known that though others may not see their worth, they see their worth. They're not going to let you forget that they have the same worth as anyone else. What did evolve is the inclusion of all marginalized or singled out groups, such as LGBTQ, brown folks, immigrants, women, disabled, etc. The powers that be were threatened by this newfound empowerment, this pushback from the other side, and hijacked the word. So instead of it meaning consciousness or awareness, it's been twisted into an insult. It's been used to dismiss people who speak up about injustice. It's been turned into shorthand for, oh, too sensitive, too progressive, part of the problem. This matters because the fact that it is now a political weapon is thrown around not to describe awareness, but to silence it. It's become a wall blocking anybody who questions power, privilege, and inequality. So for the misinformed, the misled, this is the impact it has. A word born from the fight for freedom and equality has been flipped into a tool of mockery and division. Instead of being something inspiring and uplifting, it's now used to shame people. And this is an example of fake news. A word being twisted, politically weaponized to keep people misinformed and divided in a society where ignorance gets celebrated while awareness gets ridiculed. So we're going to move right into the next definition that goes right in line with woke because it is used in very much the same way. Radical left, we all know, gets thrown around as an insult. And it has been politically weaponized. Conservatives and media pundits slap the label on almost anything they disagree with. We're asking for affordable health care, debt relief, climate action. Radical left is it's used less as a definition and more of a way to shut down or avoid debate. And, of course, to demonize opponents. The radical left means dismantling systems of oppression, racism, classism, sexism, abolishing private prisons, challenging capitalism, redistributing wealth drastically. Now, let's look at the radical right, shall we? they're also seeking sweeping change, but going in the opposite direction, preserving hierarchy, concentrating power, enforcing nationalism, rolling back rights. Historically, it's fascism, authoritarianism, white supremacy, and in like modern forms, it's Christian nationalism, anti-immigrant movements, paramilitary groups, attempts to undermine democracy itself. Misusing the phrase radical left is diluting its meaning. It tricks people into fearing progress. And meanwhile, the dangers of the radical right often get downplayed with friendlier terms like populist or patriot. I mean, what's getting called radical on the left side, like I said, healthcare and feeding children, while on the right, storming the Capitol is patriotism. It just doesn't make any sense. Understanding the true definitions cuts through the spin and helps us see a few things more clearly. Who's pushing change? What kind of change they want? And the most important, who benefits from it? Taking into account what we just described as the radical left, dismantling, eliminating, redistributing. It's rare because almost nobody with real power pushes for these things. True radical left movements do exist. Grassroots labor struggles, abolitionists, anti-capitalist organizers. But they are marginalized and not in government. That said, let's take a look at the radical right and how that actual definition ties into today's politics. Radical right means systemic transformation towards hierarchy, control, exclusion. Hello? It's not just conservative, it's white supremacy. Christian nationalism, authoritarian leaders undermining democracy and checks and balances. It's militarized policing, mass surveillance, anti-immigrant, anti-refugee, rolling back civil rights, conspiratorial movements. Every single one of these radical right ideals is being carried out or done in some way today, right now. So if anybody's radical, radicalism is about revolution, overthrowing the system, while modern mainstream policies are about reform, working within the system, working to rebuild or improve the system, not overthrow it. There's radical and there's mainstream. The truth is the radical left barely exists in our government today. It's a ghost, more myth than reality, actually. But the radical right, it's not even hiding. It's marching in broad daylight. It's writing laws, calling itself normal. And if we don't learn the difference, we're going to risk letting the real danger walk right through the front door. All right, well, there we have, I think we have a good starting point. I'm sure there'll be another installment of the dictionary episodes here, but I think we got a good base going here with some of these words, and hopefully we get the message out. Make sure to share the episode, share the channel. I appreciate you all for being here. Join me next week. I'm not sure if we're going to have another guest, if it's going to be some more executive orders that we're going to be looking at, but it's going to be something that you don't want to miss. I promise you that. So I will see you next week right here on From Dirt We Grow. Thank you so much for being here. Have a good one, guys.